What movie do you regret ever watching because it was so disturbing? Even though Funny Games to me wasn't scary in the traditional sense, more creepy and unnerving, the particular scene with the remote hasn't left me yet, and it's probably 3 years since I've seen it. It's so freaking brutal in so many ways, and also unfair. One of the best frick you audience scenes I have ever witnessed. The Crucible. It's a Korean film where deaf children and children with disabilities are abused and raped at their boarding school. There was one scene where a teacher was holding a child down on the table, about to rape her, and she just screamed for help, unable to get away. This film was based on a true story, and as a result, the school where the rapes and abuse took place was shut down. One of the original Japanese versions of The Grudge. There was this one scene where the main dude and his girlfriend were chilling together and all of a sudden he hallucinates that his GF became the ghost girl, so he goes after her with a knife. He comes around a minute later to see that he just stabbed his girlfriend multiple times in the neck and killed her. I couldn't deal with that scene. God, that movie made me afraid to turn around while laying in bed, otherwise I'd see a ghost child standing over me. The Seasoning House. This is the first horror film I haven't made it through. The premise of this film is, from what I remember, these men drug these women and keep them upstairs so people can rape them. There is a scene where a large man rapes the woman and breaks her hip bones in the process. I turned it off there and should have turned it off way before that. I don't want to know how much worse it got after that. That was such an angry cry-inducing movie. After that scene though it starts to turn around. I only made it halfway through Eraserhead, and I had no idea what was going on, but it still made me deeply uncomfortable. Apparently David Lynch worked obsessively on it for over 5 years. It was like every shot was filmed for maximum discomfort. Irreversible is probably one of the most disturbing movies I haven't seen mentioned. The rape scene is one of the most graphic though. It is roughly 10 minutes of absolute torture made worse when you realize the actress Monica Bellucci shot the scene 6 times before the film was finished. They deliberately used sound frequencies that make humans physically uncomfortable throughout the film. Genius. The last two Human Centipede. The first one was a passable horror movie. The last two were just some guy, a camera and some awful ideas. The third one was genuinely hilarious to me. 2 was super fricked up and at the top of my list for most fricked up film. Snowtown. It's a true story about murderers and pedophiles in a small Australian town. Felt physically sick and never finished watching it. Got high once with my best friend. Both movie buffs. He brought along Enter the Void, which he'd been wanting to watch for a while. I was pretty stoned and 10 minutes into that movie felt like an eternity. Normally stuff doesn't freak me out, but this movie was really making me uncomfortable. Finally I worked up the courage to ask my friend if we could change it when I realized he was asleep. I switched over to watching Phantom Menace and I still consider it one of the best decisions of my life. Now this is pod racing. A Serbian film. I was warned but laughed it off. I've seen lots of fricked up crap in my lifetime, but that movie has stuck with me as a disgusting pit in my stomach. I'm surprised the audition isn't on this list yet. Twisted Japanese thriller about a girl and her audition. The cheese wire scene still bleeds into my occasional nightmare. Also on the same foot, the movie Virus, which is another Japanese thriller about a hospital going through a serious contagion in the middle of the night, fricked up my 10-year-old head. The Japanese make some outstanding and astounding thrillers. The Girl Next Door. Holy crap, that movie was messed up. Even worse when you find out it was based on real people. How human beings can do stuff like that to other human beings is beyond me. Just sick. Seen a lot of fricked up movies. A Serbian film. The August Underground Films. 120 Days of Sodom et al. For the most part I saw them, was mildly mortified and promised myself to never watch them again. But Cannibal Holocaust, even though it's actually pretty tame compared to the ones above, was the one that disturbed me the most. That was completely down to the fact that they kill a plethora of real animals. It crossed a line in my brain. Event Horizon. I was very young, 10, but my parents would sometimes let me watch rated R movies with them. They didn't realize it would be so scary. I had trouble sleeping for a while. Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see. Kids, Even thinking about the poor child actors having to act it out disturbs me. I hate when they make children do depraved crap. Gummo freaked me out more though. I haven't watched it yet, but many people mentioned Threads, which shows the aftermath of a nuclear bomb explosion in England. I was fine with watching the day after, which was considered more mild, and it's on YouTube, but based on a nuke exploding in the US, you can easily ignore the first 30 minutes. Rabbits by David Lynch. It's a series of sitcom-like episodes, complete with random laugh track. It's a family of humanoid rabbits who speak almost entirely nonsense. A few intentionally creepy things happen, but the entire thing is just incredibly unnerving. However, the most messed up movie ever will always be Men Behind the Sun. I hated that. While I was watching, I realized it actually was a real human dissection. The rest of the film was harrowing enough, but at least I could keep It's Only a Movie in the back of my mind. A movie called Zombie Butt, Toilet of the Dead. Not so much disturbing as it is gross, but I do regret it. Never seen Human Centipede, so probably not as bad as that. WTF kind of title is that, lol. Honestly, the movie World's Greatest Dad with Robin Williams. Not like disturbing but really depressing, and I wish I hadn't seen it. Wolf Creek. I went to the last session of the night, so I didn't get out until around midnight. The car park was deserted. My car was the closest, and the people I was with asked me to drop them at their cars. It was dudes too. I watched this while on LSD in a hostel in Melbourne. I can't really recommend that experience. Not sure if this counts, but in high school during the VHS Blockbuster days, I somehow was able to rent Faces of Death, and I will never forget those horrific images. Many of those FOD vignettes were stage fake to pad out the available accidental death, bootleg, or crime scene footage. I'm astonished no one has mentioned Old Boy. That movie is so fricked up. The end left me literally mouth gaped open and speechless. See, the difference is Old Boy actually tried to be a good movie. Everything else listed here is just torture P for the shock factor. The Poughkeepsie Tapes. It's mockumentary style movie, but not the funny kind. I watched it with me then boyfriend, and there was this door in his house that would always make a sound during heavy winds, and I could not sleep the entire night because I was afraid someone was breaking in. I was actually wet from sweat. Good movie though, would recommend. Bad Boy Booby. I watched this at a time when I was on strong antidepressants, which left me emotionless, and I was watching a lot of horror thriller drama movies at the time which I had no reaction to, but Bad Boy Booby was so disturbing it broke through my anti-depressant numbness. A Serbian film, for sure. Cannibal Holocaust as well, but I'm mainly disgusted by the way the animals were treated. That tortoise scene fricked me up. As a teenager, my best friend and I would try and get through the most fricked up movies just to see if we could. Probably wasn't the greatest idea, but we became pretty desensitized. As an adult, I'm currently struggling to get through Cuzo. That movie is incredibly trippy and odd. I deeply apologize. I did not see that it said movie. I thought it was just what do you regret ever watching, so I typed this out. I'm headed to bed, but if this is having the rules, not answering, then feel free to report and have it deleted, or PM and I can delete it myself. Not a movie or a TV show. I've forced myself to watch every death notification for any investigation I was a part of. I was on a bad collision once. Girl was ejected from their vehicle and crushed by it when it rolled. She was trapped. Trapped in the sense that we couldn't get her body out, not in the sense we could have saved her. Underneath. So her parents hadn't seen her body. Mom was knocked unconscious in the roll. Dad was not in the car, so mom woke up to police and paramedics everywhere, and assumed her daughter had been taken to the hospital. That was why she wasn't seen. Mom was driving a carload of kids to get daughter's birthday party at a local Chuck E. Cheese equivalent. All of the other girls survived with minor or no injury. Wear your fricking seatbelt. Girl's name was Ashley. I went to the hospital to follow up. We were waiting for dad to arrive to do the notification, and mom was starting to wonder what the frick was going on. Where's Ashley? Where's Ashley? Her friends started arriving at the hospital. Juveniles in a rollover are transported regardless of injury. Dad finally shows up and starts to do some basic math. There's 4 ambulances outside. There's 4 patients in recovery, and there's 2 cops standing off to the side. If Ashley was here, there would be 5 ambulances. But it's her birthday. What happened? And then the doctor. The freaking doctor. I hate doing death notifications. I hate it with a passion. I did DUI enforcement. I've seen plenty of death. And it never gets easier, so when the freaking doctor asks me and my partner if we want her to do the death notice, I'm like, frick it, yeah, you tell mom she made an unsafe turn and killed her daughter on her birthday. I'll watch, because frick me, for some reason I feel like I have to. Doc, you keep asking about Ashley. Who is Ashley to you? Mom, my daughter. Where is she? Doc, she's dead. Holy freaking Christ, I was unaware that humans could make certain sounds. And I hope none of you ever have to hear what true absolute horror and heartbreak sound like. The freaking doctor tries to talk over mom and dad wailing. Well, they tried everything they could on scene type of crap, and is actually getting irritated that they aren't paying attention, so she just fricks off and leaves. I've never seen such blatant disregard for people's emotions. I can genuinely still hear mom screaming if I close my eyes, especially after typing out the story. That is the stuff of nightmares. Splice. The creature is so uncanny valley creepy, and the fact that it ends up fricking both its parents just makes me queasy. Precious. For the sake of this thread I started reading the plot on Wiki to remind myself why it made me feel so sick and uneasy. I really wish I hadn't done that. The book is much worse. It's good, don't get me wrong, but it's brutal. Nightcrawler. Jake Gyllenhaal does an amazing portrayal of a sociopath and the ending just stuck with me, creeping me out to no end. Utøya. It's about the massacre that occurred on the island Utøya in Norway in 2011 when a right-wing extremist killed over 70 teenagers who were out camping there. It's 72 minutes of zero cuts and it's filmed handheld like you're there from start to finish. The attack was also 72 minutes in real life. It's brutal, and you feel the very real panic as shots and screams are heard all around and the anguish as the realization of what is happening is starting to set in. The Vanishing. Not the remake. The original French version. I won't let my wife out of my sight in a service station ever because I'm so disturbed by it. Watch this one movie about a boy who was searching for his father. Everyone told him his father had been murdered, but he knew in his heart that he could find his dad. Even if he didn't fully believe it himself. He finally finds him, but the dad had been brainwashed by some evil cult and he chases his son through an industrial factory. When he catches the boy, the dad chops off his arm. I think it was called The Empire Strikes Back. I laughed really hard. Take my upvote. Sklinder's List. When he says how many more lives he could have saved by selling more of his belongings. I don't regret watching that movie, but it brings tears every time I think of it. It was a show, but there was an episode of Full Metal Alchemist with a guy's daughter and dog I watched because my friend was begging me to watch anime and said that the show was great. I stopped after the end of that episode and couldn't sleep for a week. Ed Ward. 28 days later. Especially that beginning scene where the apes attack them and they start vomiting. It was very realistic. Every zombie film before was always a bit kooky, but 28 seemed so real because it was more of a sickness rather than zombie. You know, I can take gore brutal stuff, but this movie made me sick to my stomach. It was the first time a violent zombie undead outbreak seemed terrifying to me. My fav zombie movie. Eraserhead. It disturbed me and stuck in my head. It was like looking at a train wreck. You can't look away. Can't listen to a word without it returning. In heaven, everything is fine. People who have seen it will understand that. You got lynched. Can't say I regret it, but a Soviet movie called Come and See messed with my head for a week after I watched it. It is about the suffering endured by the people in Belarus under German occupation during World War II. Harrowing stuff. And the worst part is, it's not exaggerated. It's not fiction, not artistic image. Its premise is based on true events, on witness accounts of SS monstrosities. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.